decent third baseman at this point, and Severino's obviously a very good starter. Unfortunately, he got hurt for Cincinnati, but I think they got an incredible haul. Giving up guys who I don't think really hurt them long term for a team that's not really looking to compete this year and maybe not next year.
Yep, agreed. Lot of value going both ways there for sure. The next one I want to touch on is Toronto in this little. Are they selling and rebuilding, or are they still going for a window? They traded a couple big names in this deal. They trade Clevenger and Yo Jimenez to Boston for another big prospect return, maybe headlined back by Robert Moore, who they traded to Boston earlier in the season. So, Nick, your thoughts on that deal and how it played out for each team?
Well, I had originally thought it played out really well, but there was a bit of a twist after today's sim. Right. Mike Clevenger lost for a month. He'll be back for their playoff push, but the Red Sox need pitching, and obviously losing Clevenger is a big one. He's been really good he's been pretty much replicating exactly what he did in Toronto during his time there. I'd still feel good with him if I was the Red Sox. He's got 2 team-friendly team options coming up, so they can pick or choose. He is fragile, so there are some questions. Joe Jimenez, they also got to be one of their setup men. I'm familiar with. He used to be my closer. He's also off to a very strong start for Boston, and he'll be a key piece to their pen during their playoff push. In terms of Toronto's return, Robert Moore, solid all-around second baseman, but he doesn't have any power. I think he could make his debut as soon as this year. If not, I assume he'll be on the roster next year. Right now, Dalen Lyle, I think he's more of a fourth outfielder, but he's young enough, and if he develops some more power, I think he'll be a very good outfielder for the Blue Jays. Nick Nastrini, I think he's a quad A arm type. Somebody you bring if their injuries pile up, but I don't think he's going to sustain long-term major league success. Mackenzie Stills, I think he's a reliever type. Great stuff, lacks that control. Kind of reminds me of DeMarcus Evans of the Texas Rangers. Could develop into that type of player. But out of the guys they got, Melvin Dominguez interests me the most. He's the type of prospect I would go after, a 19-year-old, all-around good player. Like Moore, he lacks that power, but he's a quality lottery ticket type of player. All in all, I think it's a solid return for Toronto on 2 good pitchers. There's only one high upside, although I think Moore is a major leaguer and I think Lyle's a major leaguer. We'll see on Dominguez long term. But they wanted to free up money, and they did. I think it's a good deal for both teams.
Yep, definitely agreed there. And we stay with Toronto for this next one. They send Kenta Maeda to Cleveland for a really nice return, honestly. They get back Leody Taveras, who's a major league proven outfielder, a couple arms, and Alamon and Sproat, and Brian Rocchio, second baseman prospect. It's a really nice. I think Taveras ran himself into a place in Cleveland where he was kind of turning into an odd man out, especially after a slow start to the year. It looks like he's turned it around pretty quickly in Toronto, playing good for them. But obviously, you get a big arm and Kenta Maeda back if you're the Spiders, who. Coming off a guy who in 2024 led the AL in ERA, and looks like it's been a little bit of a slow start for him in Cleveland. ERA is not what you would expect for him, but I think it's a deal where Toronto gets a good return if they were really trying to do a sell-off, and gets a lot of guys who are right on the cusp of being major league ready for sure. The next one we'll get to is a really big swap. Miami sends Rogers, Kierstad, and Marte to the Dodgers for Capelli, Villegas, McKenna, and Happ. A lot of prospect talent, a lot of young major league talent going both ways in that deal. Jason, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, you said it, like it's not that it's talent going to the Dodgers; it's young talent. So they have Kierstad, who was a runner-up to be Rookie of the Year a couple of years ago, has really bounced around a lot, but has been a pretty solid player in the majors so far. He's only been in the league 2 years, so he still has one more I think he's arbitration eligible up to this year. Hasn't really hit much since going to LA. But there's a lot of upside there to him. And then, getting Trevor Rogers, who's a very solid pitcher. Pitched a 2.5 WAR last year. The Marlins had an ERA just above 4, and it's been solid for the Dodgers so far. And then the return, they get Capelli, who is one of the more interesting prospects I think in baseball. He's far away. He's not gonna make an impact in the next year or two, but I think there's a lot of upside there. They have him, I believe, playing third base. They have him listed as a third baseman now. He was listed as a second baseman before. Big time speed. OSA, looks at him like a potential 5-tool threat, maybe a little less on defense. I'd worry about some of the personality. Not a high work ethic, though he's a highly intelligent player. So him being the cornerstone of that deal for Miami makes for a very interesting piece. And then also getting Villegas, who looks like could be a very good pitcher. Another guy who's pretty far away, only 18 years old. Probably won't see him in the big leagues for another couple of years. But very durable, high stamina, really good personality ratings. Can really pitch. Has huge upside. I think could be at the top of rotation one day. So getting those two guys, it's high risk, high reward for the Marlins. Building a deal around those two guys, and then they also sent back Owen Marte, who, is not to me not just like a throw in this deal. He looks like a somewhat interesting prospect who maybe could be a utility infielder role down the line. But interesting trade from both sides. LA getting, the starter they wanted and a very controllable outfielder in exchange for two very high upside but raw and far away prospects.
Yep, definitely agreed. And then the last one we want to touch on, the Pirates send Gerson Garabito to Tampa Bay for Deshaun Knowles and Fred Austin. Funny enough, like we just touched on with Maeda, the NL leader in ERA, Garabito, from a year ago, gets moved as well before this deadline. He gets moved to the Rays, who are in need of some pitching, and the Pirates get back Deshaun Knowles, who looks like a great outfielder, can play in some different places. High I guy, which is nice to see. And then Fred Austin, who is a top 100 prospect, an arm. And, the Pirates, who you have to deal with some constraints there financially. Garabito's number is probably starting to get up, probably more than they like. So you turn that into the number 80 prospect and a good young outfielder, which the Pirates could use some offense out there. A good deal for both sides, and the Rays get the pitching they need. So with that, we'll try to smoothly transition into talking through some of our contenders, where we're at with the standings and what they could each use. So we'll start in the AL East, and not sure through today's sim, but prior to today, the Rays had opened up an 8-game lead in the division, led by the best offense, the best run scoring offense in the American League. So you look at things they could need. That's probably not the side. They do try to adjust the pitching with the Garabito ad, but again, it's a starting rotation where they're getting carried a little bit by the best defense in baseball as well. So, or in the AL as well. So middle of the road on the starter side, but 8-game lead, looking like one of the best teams in the AL. Be excited to see what they do in terms of upgrades there. Boston's an interesting one, as they're leading the wild card right now. They had a half-game lead over the Mariners per the last sim, and they've definitely made moves to try to compete this year. So still a young group, especially offensively, but they're right behind the Rays in terms of offense and scoring. Similarly, they could use help on the pitching side, 13th and 5th, 13th in pitching WAR in the AL. So clearly, despite some nice ERAs, Clevenger and Kerry Wright having good years, they're not getting help from everywhere in that rotation and bullpen. And then finally, Toronto's in a weird place where we've seen them sell off some key guys who have helped them make runs in the last few years. So it looks like they're in kind of a seller's mentality, but they're sitting there really close, playing good baseball lately. So I won't get into what they could use because they could very easily go either way here. So that's for the East. We will transition on to the AL Central, and with Cleveland, Detroit on the top. Jason, tell me what you see with them.
Yeah, so as of now, Cleveland has the 5.5 game lead. Probably one of the more complete teams in the game. I think maybe the biggest issue for them maybe is their starting pitching, which I think they tried to resolve with Kenta Maeda. So that's a place where they might want to go. I don't know if there's a lot of starters on the block right now, at least who've been made publicly available. If not, maybe they decide to go another round, just kind of shore up their bullpen, get another guy, go with that 2015 Royals type mentality, just get it 6 innings and then you're kind of game over. The other thing they could probably use is maybe another outfielder. They've been using Austin Hendricks. Austin Hendrick is having a really down year, who's been either playing right field or DHing for them. So that could be a spot where they look to maybe upgrade a little bit, find someone who can provide a little more offense at the DH spot. But otherwise, it's a really solid team that again could be right up there as they usually are for a World Series bid. And then it's Knicks Tigers, who are 5.5 games back now, a game and a half out of the wild card. One of the better pitching teams in baseball. Their starters ERA and bullpen ERA both top 2 in the AL. What they can really use is some offense. As of now, they only have 5 guys with an OPS plus above 100. They made the move for Corey Ray, who so far has not been great for them. They have a number of areas they can go here. Maybe there's a few catchers on the market. They may be in that looking for an upgrade there. Looking for an upgrade maybe on the infield. They haven't gotten a lot of offense out of their second, third, or short. So those are 2 places I think they can really look to go, where there's maybe some names available that might not have too high of a cost.
Yep, love that, and we'll wrap it up with the West. Nick, talk through the Angels, who I much too familiarly know had a nice sim today, and the Mariners, who are sitting in a playoff spot as well as we see.
The Angels are, I'm sure they're aware, are in need to upgrade their starting pitchers after the injuries to Syndergaard and McKenzie. I thought Matthew Boyd would be a good fit, but after his injury today, I'm not sure who would be a good fit now. There are just not many starting pitchers being advertised on the market. Who knows who's going to end up being dealt? That'll be part of the fun. But I thought Matthew Boyd would be an excellent fit, cheap, could plug him in, but unfortunately that didn't happen. When it comes to the Mariners, they need to get production from their first baseman offensively. It's a position you don't want no production from, and they're just not getting any from it this year. Other than that, their offense is, from top to bottom, really good. Other than that, their starting rotation is good. I think they could just upgrade some pieces in the pen. But obviously, they're red hot right now. They're riding the 7-game winning streak. And I hope to see them again in the playoffs this year.
All right, let's transition over to the NL. We will start in the East.
Tyler, I'm gonna interrupt you real quick.
Bring it on.
We've got our first trade. The Texas Rangers have traded Blake Rutherford and starting pitching prospect Kane Tatum to the Minnesota Twins in exchange for first baseman Nate Lowe at 50% retained.
Well, there we go.
Where I say Nate Lowe stuff.
Yeah, this is perfect. This is perfect for you, Nick. But a team we didn't touch on as being a potential buyer necessarily in the AL, just kind of where they sit right now. But the Rangers, obviously, with their offseason moves, have acquired some talent. They get I guess the level of talent you can call it for Nate Lowe is debatable, but they make a deal here to get a first baseman who definitely has some pop.
I've been keeping an eye on him. He's been pretty good in Minnesota, much to my detriment.
All right. Well, there we go. Deal number one. I'm looking forward to these breaking in. So we'll transition over to the NL East.
I got it.
And we'll start at the top with the Nationals and the Braves. They have a pretty huge lead over the rest of the division. But it might be a one-bid division, so it'll be interesting to see how these two compete at the top. The Nationals kind of are the team they've always been, where it's a really good offensive group. They're in second in batting, at second in OPS, a great hitting team. But like it seems like we're starting to mention with a lot of these teams, lacking some pitching that can get it done on a regular basis. Like Jackson Phipps has been nice, 9-3 with a 291 on the year. Paddock has had a nice kind of bounce back year out of a disaster 2024. So that's been good to see. But overall, they've struggled figuring out the bullpen, what to do with Blake Snell, some pieces like that. So they're obviously a team I would expect to try to upgrade, especially with the Braves, who have shown they clearly have a desire to upgrade by adding a guy like Mackenzie Gore, shifting some guys around here left and right. Another team where that was a need they definitely needed to address with the pitching, because that was letting them down. The offense is pretty much a set, good group, top to bottom. I mean, double-digit home runs from 8 of the 9 in the lineup there. So that'll be a fun battle down the stretch. I think we always feel like it's the Braves division. So if the Nats want to do it, I would love to see a big splash out of them. Transitioning to the Central, and this is an interesting one. Maybe you can call more teams contenders than just the Cardinals, but they sit there prior to today's sim with a 12-game lead in the division. Jason, your thoughts on the Cards and maybe anyone else that could use an upgrade?
Yeah, it's pretty much a runaway at this point. The Cardinals are probably going to win the division at this point. They're kind of trying to shore up for what happens in October. But yeah, I mean it's again another solid all around team. One of probably the best pitching team in the National League. High up there as an offense. There's a couple holes they could probably fill in. They could probably use another bullpen arm. Craig Kimbrell has not been his usual great self. He's been all right. He's been solid. But they definitely have a couple spots in that pen they can use to upgrade. They could probably also use an upgrade maybe in the rotation. But as with Nate Pearson really struggling this year. But yeah, I mean, they're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to want to, it's like I was saying with the AL Central teams, you want to build up that bullpen, maybe because there aren't a lot of starting available. Just have a bunch of guys so that you really shorten the game, make it a 5 or 6 inning game, and have 4 or 5 guys you can go to that bullpen at the end of the day. And on the offensive side, they're in a really good spot there as well. I think maybe an upgrade at second base, but or catcher even. Ivan Herrera has been solid. Maybe it's a spot where maybe if they wanted to, they can get a little more offense, but it's really not necessary for them. So we'll see. We'll see what they end up where they end up going. Getting Austin Meadows hasn't really worked out for them, so they may try to get another bat, but otherwise, I'd say just try to work in that bullpen and really build it up to make up for maybe a little bit of a lack in starting pitching.
Yep, agreed there. We will we'll wrap this up. Nick, take a deep breath with the NL West and all the contenders out there. It's pretty much it. The Rockies have an 8-game lead, yet the other 3 teams are leading in the wild card race right now. Your thoughts, kind of just hitting around on each of those squads at the top on what they could use.
With the Rockies, I think it's a little nitpicky, but imagine if that team added another big-time home run threat to their lineup, they might never lose again. With their pitching has just been insane this year, given who they are and where they play. Other than that, just adding elite relievers would be their starting rotation is good. Their lineup's mostly good. Everyone could use better relievers, and I know that they have been in the market for some elite back end relievers. In terms of the Giants, the Giants were tough because I don't know who you replace in that lineup. They need more offensive production, but they have young players everywhere that are a part of their future. So I'd imagine that you'll go and let those young kids play because the future is very bright. And obviously the Giants could definitely upgrade some pitching. The Diamondbacks are one of the, to me, probably the most interesting team at this deadline. They really needed to upgrade shortstop, and then Cole Tucker got hurt anyways, who was not hitting well. But I'm really interested to see if they are going to address that new hole at shortstop they have. And then with the Dodgers, they're already a very good and talented team. The one hole I really noticed was in right field. If they can figure out, I know money's tight there after all the moves they've made since the GM transition has happened. But I believe if they can fill that hole in right field, they could really take off. And I believe I would be shocked to see anything other than two NL West teams make the wild card, but I know there's some teams in the NL East who will put up a fight, so we will see what happens. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. It seems like it's, as it stands now, it's pretty much those three teams and the Braves or whoever comes out of the NL East is going to be, two of those four are going to be the wild card teams for sure. All right, so with that, we will transition to our top 10 names available at this year's deadline. So,
hey Tyler, before we move to our top 10,
yeah,
we have our second trade. The Chicago Cubs are sending prospect Montreal Nardini, or I'm sorry, they are receiving prospect Montreal Nardini from the Los Angeles Angels in exchange for relief pitcher Kyle Crick.
All right, so there's a deal. Kyle Crick is having a nice year, mid-threes, not quite the year he had a year ago where he looked like one of the best relievers in baseball, but Crick's a guy who clearly a proven track record, 10.5 K per nine there. The Angels address some things they have on the pitching side. Guys, your thoughts on that one?
Kyle Crick had a .75 ERA last year.
0.7.
I had no idea. That's nuts. I like this trade.
Yeah, I mean, I think the guy going back to the Cubs is looks like, not necessarily anything special, but he's only 17. Could become a decent back end starter at some point to get for basically a reliever. I think is a pretty good get for the Cubs right now, and I like the Angels making the move for the solid reliever.
Yeah, Crick, $4.5 million this year. He is a rental. He does expire after this year, but for a 32-year-old at deadline, not a huge buy, but a great ad for sure for a pen that could use it. Mm-hmm. All right, so into our top 10 names. Let's start at the top. Let's get the big dogs out of the way. So I think the biggest name, and Nick, we'll go to you first, that we've seen floated around, and it's been a question mark for a lot of FTD is Adley a career Oriole, or does he get moved at some point?
I think I don't know if he's going to get moved today. I'd actually be kind of surprised if he's moved today, but I think he's not by far, but I think he's the best the best player that's available. I think for my money, he's having a bit of a down season, but for my money, he's the best catcher in this league. There's nothing he can't do at that position. But I have my doubts that he's dealt. I believe most contenders are a little cash strapped to afford him this season. And there's no reason for Baltimore to retain any money without an even bigger return than what they're going to end up getting. So for me, I'm just excited to see if he gets moved today. In terms of fits, my Tigers would be a fit. We would like to upgrade catcher, but I don't think that'll happen today. Other than that, the Angels, the Nationals, the Rockies, who don't necessarily need him, but could you imagine him in that environment? And I also think he'd be a good fit with the Dodgers.
Like that. Yeah, that'll be a fun one to monitor. If it's not this deadline, it might be the next. And, who knows with the Orioles if they'll put it together in his window. Next, we'll stick with the catcher position and behind the plate. The Indians the Spiders need to get with the times. Shopping around Francisco Mejia. Jason, your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, I think surprised to see Mejia even listed out there. I know he's a free agent at the end of the year, so maybe they really don't think they're going to sign him. And while he's a good bat, he's not necessarily the great defensive catcher that you'd like to have back there. And they do have a backup in Mike Rivera who has really good defensive upside. But for a team like the Spiders, who are probably one of the front runners in the American League, it'd be hard for me to see them trading, one of their best players at such a premier position when they're title contenders. We've seen weird things that could probably withstand his bat being out of the lineup, and you could probably see, some better pitching if Rivera's behind the plate full time. But it'd be hard for me to see them moving him. I know there are teams out there that would like an upgraded catcher. One of them being, Nick's Tigers, but I highly doubt Cleveland would send him over there. So it's just hard for me to imagine him getting moved at the deadline. This could have been just Shane trying to get blown away for an offer for a guy he might not re-sign in the offseason anyway.
Yep, agreed. So catcher at the top, and we transition to a position that's definitely everyone could use. I think when hearing he was on the block.
Tyler, I'm going to intervene. We have the Texas Rangers receiving relief pitcher Trevor Gott from the Baltimore Orioles. This is a 100% retainment from the Orioles in exchange for prospect Danny Sota.
All right, so there's another one. Trevor Gott, obviously beloved in the Bay Area. The Rangers making moves is another going to win now move from the Rangers, trying to get into that AL wild card. They get back just on a quick glance. Soto looks to be out for the year, but he's a young arm. Who knows how that could turn out? But really a lottery ticket for a guy in Trevor Gott who solid middle relief is what I'll give him, unless y'all have something different.
Nope, you nailed it.
Yep.
All right, so speaking of relief and maybe upgrading slightly in that relief, as I was mentioning, poor Edwin and his heart palpitations after being put on the trade block. But Nick, your thoughts on obviously an elite closer in this game and Edwin Diaz and his chance to get moved?
I think he should definitely be moved. He's one of the best closers in the game right now. He's on a reasonable deal through next season. He's having a really nice season for Jason San Diego Padres. Every contender could use him. Everyone could upgrade bullpen pieces. My fits, I'm going to keep it where he could close. And there's one team that popped up after injuries today that I think would be a great fit in Atlanta. They lost their closer for, I think, a month. Other teams I think he'd be a really good fit on and would close for them, in my opinion, would be Seattle, Washington, Colorado, and Arizona.
Love it. At 4 on our list, we'll keep it with the relievers, and Taylor Rogers for the Blue Jays makes it next. If you don't want a righty, you need a lefty in the pen. Maybe he's the way you go there. He's got a 2.65 ERA on the year. He's under contract for this year and has a player option next year, making just a shade under $9 million with the prior retainment from the Twins. And like we touched on with every team, hey, a lot of
Hey,
people
Tyler,
could be.
Tyler, getting word. The
Oh,
Washington Nationals have just
Ooh,
acquired
okay.
reliever Joe Kunal from the Cincinnati Reds for Maxwell
Ooh.
Muncy and Alvaro Salas.
all right. So there we go. Kunal's a guy who I know has been around
Hmm.
for a couple of years working out of their pen. Good. He's carried a low 4, high 3 ERA the last few years. So Nationals on the pitching side, they get some an upgrade there for sure. For the Reds, any thoughts on that return?
Looks like Muncy's kind of a weak bat, but a very strong defensive player. But he's still only 22. Salas has got a very interesting profile, though.
Yeah, I'm
Very
not.
good. Oh,
Sorry. I'm not. Salas. Yeah, I was going to agree with you. His interesting profile. He was a first base only guy, but high contact rate, doesn't strike out, but doesn't really get on base or hit home runs. So it'll be interesting to see if he ends up fitting into a major league roster at some point. But I don't know if that profile really screams major leaguer to me.
So yeah,
He can't play first base without power, in my opinion, especially
exactly.
with no power. But he's still young. Maybe it develops, but
Yeah,
it would have to develop a lot.
yeah, it's a worthwhile shot on a guy in Kunal who's probably days in since he might have been numbered anyway.
Yeah,
He was a free agent at the end of this year. Or sorry, no, he was a free agent at the end of 27. Oh,
we'll call Kunal a slightly upgraded Trevor Gott from just a second ago. I think is what I'm getting from him.
He does have 2 team options or very cheap team options for the next 2 years. So this isn't necessarily a rental situation.
All right, perfect. So we're through Taylor Rogers at 4 on the list. The next guy up is maybe a position of need. Kansas City shortstop Jason Guzman, who was an all-star this year. Jason, your thoughts on him and potentially being moved?
Yeah, I mean, an interesting guy just because he's out now. He's been on the DL for about a month. Just got back into a rehab assignment. But a guy who has spent time in Kansas City, parts of the last basically 4 seasons in Kansas City, been on the kind of quadruple A shuttle going back and forth between KC and Omaha. Always has been a kind of a solid producer at the major league level. So it's kind of surprising that he spent so much time in AAA over that time. But I think this year he's having an outstanding year, hitting 330, OPS of 861. He's been kind of a league. He's been a well below average fielder in Kansas City, though. And I think that's kind of what hurts his value a little bit. So you're getting some really good offense from a guy at a position you don't necessarily expect huge offense from, but you're going to be giving up some defense there. So yeah, there are teams that might be looking for a bat, maybe in the middle of diamond, who could be looking out for him. He's only 3 years of service time, so he's got 3 years before he's free agency. He's going to be an arbitration eligible player after this year, so it'll be interesting to see where he goes and who's willing to take on that risk of maybe a poor defensive shortstop.
All right, our next guy on this list.
Tyler, I'm going to intervene before you get started again.
Bring him on.
The Boston Red Sox have acquired Jorge Guzman from the Miami Marlins in exchange for prospect Ignacio Mayorga.
So a real pump fake for us there on the Jason Guzman, Jorge Guzman there. But yeah, Guzman goes there. Big time stuff for Guzman. 191 ERA he's carrying on the year. Been really nice, really nice out of the pen for the Fish in the early going. And they get back a prospect as well. Y'all's thoughts on that deal?
The prospect actually looks all right. But especially after Clevenger's injury, bringing in Guzman, who could potentially start for the Red Sox, is a very good addition.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we've been talking about how there's really no starters on the market, a guy like Guzman who can maybe either be a long man out of the pen or be like a 5th starter who gives you maybe 4 or 5 innings every 5th day is a really solid get right now. I do happen to like Mayorga. He's a guy, 18-year-old, just in rookie ball right now. So it's a good get for the Marlins, but I think getting Guzman for the Red Sox is kind of a huge deal right now.
For sure. Yep, that'll be an interesting one to see how they decide to utilize him.
Yep.
Up next, we got Yordan Alvarez of the.
Tyler, before you go again, we got back-to-back deals.
Keep bringing them.
The Houston Astros have received Luke Jewett and prospect Randy Castro from the Atlanta Braves in exchange for infielder Luis Guillorme.
All right. Well, yeah, Guillorme was an interesting one, a tough cut of our top 10 list, to be honest. Obviously, an elite middle infield defender, third base as well, can play all over the place. The bat, you kind of get what you can out of the bat. Doesn't strike out a lot, which is nice. But the Braves kind of solidifying a nice util piece there. Thoughts on Guillorme and the return that the Astros get back?
Looks like Luke Jewett
Forgot to mention that this deal is 100% retained.
4.2 mil cleared as well in the deal, or however much was left on the year.
Jewett looks like a solid prospect, but coming up, well, a torn meniscus, so he should be able to recover from that one just fine. Randy Castro's just a lottery ticket, it looks like. But in this deal, I don't mind that Astros return.
Yeah, and I actually really like this for the Braves to get it's kind of a hedge against. Guillorme can basically give you elite defense at three positions. Either hedge against any one of Albies Seager or Adinso Reyes, missing time. I don't know if Reyes will keep up what he's been doing, so maybe Guillorme eventually slots in there at shortstop. But he's definitely a very high level utility infielder who really gives you value at all three positions. So I really like this deal for both sides.
All right. Try number 3, unless you got another one for me, Zach. We have to talk about a red at some point, right? Yordan Alvarez, who has worn out his welcome in just 40 games in Cincinnati. Obviously, Nick, a gigantic power bat. Your thoughts on Yordan?
I've got some questions when it comes to Yordan. I love Yordan. He's come down a little bit from that incredible 2023 season he had. I think depending on the Reds' plan and their financial situation, I know they have one of the smaller budgets. Will they be able to re-sign him? If not, they have to trade him today. That's one of the biggest storylines, I think, for this deadline. He's fully retained, so absolutely, he's already fully retained, so anyone could afford him. But how high will the asking price be? That's the real question. In terms of fits, a lot of teams could use him. I think Boston could use him, Cleveland could use him, the Angels, the Cardinals, the Rockies, the Giants, the Dodgers. But will he be moved? I'm not sure.
Yep, definitely an interesting question there. Up next on the list, we got just an absolute legend of the game in Kevin Gausman for the Dodgers. Kind of been forced into a relief role for them with how they're figuring out their pitching. But once again, the guy has just remained so solid and so good. The issue being with Gausman, obviously the contract is quite pricey and it only escalates after this year. So you have to think on talent alone, he's higher on this list in terms of value with that contract added in. It's tough to imagine him getting moved without some level of retainment. But the guy is, as opposed to I think he leads all Dodgers starting pitchers in WAR on the year, or it's close. So it's a guy who, if you could make the financials work, I would applaud every team for acquiring a Kevin Gausman type. All right, up next to number 8 on the list.
One more trade. The Washington Nationals have received Franklin Colome, Carlos Estevez, and $3 million in exchange from the Houston Astros for prospects Mark McLaughlin, Luis Popmus, and Burt Ronco.
All right, this is a fun one. The Nationals keep it going with the pitching upgrades. Obviously, Colome was an interesting guy in terms of he's being used as a starter right now, but he's really only a 2-pitch guy with that changeup lagging a good bit behind. But he's been really nice for the Astros this year. The ERA is a little high, but it's a little bad batted ball luck there. I think he's the headliner in this deal. The Nationals continue to acquire some pitching as well as they need to. So be interested to see your thoughts on the other pieces included in this deal.
Yeah, sorry, Zach. Can you bring up the full trade again, just so I can see the names?
The 2 pitchers.
Sure.
I like the first one. McLaughlin is hurt, and that seems to be a theme for the Astros this deadline. They don't mind taking on injured players, high upside injured players. Burt Ronsel, good athlete, 19 years old, so might trend into the right direction. I'm not sure
like
he's going to make it, but he's a great athlete.
Yeah, it looks like more of a defensive shortstop than anything. But if he can get his back going even a little bit, then maybe you really have something there. And a guy we just mentioned, like a Luis Guillorme type, who's a backup utility infielder that can just kind of give you some backup at those positions. But yeah, I really like them getting Franklin Kilome, who's another guy who can start. I think he probably worked better out of the pen as a long man, but with such a dearth of starting pitching, it's good to get guys who can give you any sort of length.
Yep, absolutely. We were transitioning to I think number 8 on our list, an outfielder having a pretty solid season. Jason, your thoughts on Alex Verdugo for the Mets?
Yeah, he's a very interesting name. A very solid player, has been a really good player. Where he's bounced around a little bit from Boston to LA to Tampa and out of the Mets. But he's kind of hit pretty well wherever he's gone. He's having a bit of a down year. OBP hovering around 300, slugging percentage a little down from where it usually is. But he's only 29. He rates pretty well still, and he's under contract through next year with a couple of team options following that are relatively cheap given his production. So it'd be interesting to see if he even does get moved at the deadline. I know we've mentioned there are definitely teams out there that can use a bat. So a number of the teams that Nick mentioned before regarding Yordan Alvarez could probably use him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he just stays in New York for at least through the deadline, at least to the offseason if the price isn't there for him.
All right, at number 9 on our list, and we get to welcome in our analyst John, who's been
Tyler. We got breaking news, and we got a pretty big one, maybe the biggest one so far.
Okay.
The Baltimore Orioles have sent starting pitcher Antoine Kelly to the San Francisco Giants in exchange for Sal Frelick, Luis Matos, and William Holmes.
Now, some very nice timing for you here, John. You both get to kind of talk through Kelly and where you thought he'd end up, and you get to see in front of you a deal where he goes to San Francisco.
Yeah, I didn't have the Giants for sure. Nice move though. Kelly was a talented lefty from Baltimore, so you had to kind of use the ballpark in your evaluations, but I kind of think he'll be better for you than his time in Baltimore. Lefty, talented, again, young. So nice move. I missed the return though. What was it there?
So the Giants are giving up a couple of outfielders. Sal Frelick, who's actually up on the major league squad right now.
Okay.
Luis Matos as well as a starting pitching prospect, and William Holmes.
Okay, yeah. Actually did look into Kelly for myself. So again, I think that's a good move for you in the West, being a left-handed hitting heavy. So I like that deal for both teams actually.
Jason, Nick, any thoughts on this move?
I like the trade for both sides. I think Kelly, especially given the fact that he's a lefty, is one of the best. And 25 years old, and it was a no-brainer for Baltimore to trade him, in my opinion, with their slew of starting pitching prospects. That's just insane. And Frelick and Matos can contribute for them tomorrow. But in terms of starting pitching, Kelly was the cream of the crop of this. I don't think we'll see a better starting pitcher traded than him today.
Yeah, completely agreed. Especially a guy who's still arbitration eligible and won't even still has I think 3 or probably 4 years right now of time before he hits free agency. So it's definitely a good gift for the Giants for now and the future. The ability to dig into that deep system to get him is huge.
All right, there we go. Biggest name move. That's what I like to hear. So we'll wrap up our top 10 with our last guy, Ramon Laureano. Jason, your thoughts on starting with an Oriole, and we've ended with 2 here on the tail end.
Yeah, it seems like the Orioles are gonna be pretty busy. Laureano's a great defensive outfielder, great defensive right fielder at this point. No longer not going to play center field anymore. But he's still a really good offensive player, putting up really good numbers for the Orioles this year. Is still under contract through next year, so it does have he does have a player option for 2026. So at $21 million, which at 31 years old, he might actually decline that and head to free agency. So it might be a rental move. But I would think the Orioles would want to move him again, like Verdugo, or Alvarez. A lot of teams that can use that extra bat in the lineup. You get a premier defensive player in Laureano as well. So I'd be a little surprised if the Orioles didn't move him and get a fairly decent price for him. But we'll see. We'll see if anyone actually meets, if the price is right for the Orioles to do that.
All right, agreed.
I'm going to intervene here again. We have the Tampa Bay Rays have acquired infielder Scott Kingery from the Phillies in exchange for pitcher Mason Denneberg.
It did it.
Kingery is 100% retained, and the Phillies will also send $2 million in cash.
How long has Scott Kingery been on the block? Since day one of this league?
Yeah, I was about to say, I remember it being a slightly more touted name a year ago. He's kind of turned it down in production a bit if you look at him, but kind of the opposite of Guillorme, where he's a utility bat for the sake of getting in there and hitting the ball. The defense won't really wow you anywhere, but he's enough to get by at second and maybe third. So it's nice to see that Kingery's been moved. Any thoughts on the deal and the Denneberg return?
Denneberg looks solid. It's a fair return for Kingery.
Yeah, I think I actually really like it. I like the return for the Phillies, moving off a guy who, who's probably going to be gone after this year anyway with that team option. Getting a guy like Mason Denneberg, who, he's a little older for a prospect, but could be a decent back end mid rotation starter for them, even as soon as next year.
Agreed. So here we are. We're sitting 7 minutes from our deadline. Obviously, the league is shaking in their boots with the massive Giants upgrade. So I have to imagine it's just panic city around the league at this point,
especially in the NL West.
Yeah, especially in the NL West.
I peed my pants a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. That's what I'm hoping for. So.
We've got another move coming in right now. Phone's blowing up. The Detroit Tigers have acquired Taylor Rogers from the Toronto Blue Jays in exchange for Dave Angelis and Javi Rodriguez.
All right.
Those are the names I sent.
There's a name we obviously mentioned high up our list. Number 4 guy on our list gets moved. The Tigers get a big left-handed bullpen arm. I mean, Rogers has been really good for a long time. Nick, any thoughts on the deal?
Are those real names that I sent him? With Dave Angelis as an angel, I sent him De La Cruz and Rios. So the names are wrong on the return.
I'm sorry. I mixed the trades up.
Phone's blowing up.
The Jays made 2 trades back to back.
Oh, those
okay.
Those are the guys going for the other guy.
Those
I definitely don't know about.
So these are the returns for Ty Buttrey.
Okay.
The Angels are receiving Ty Buttrey for these two players.
Okay. So yeah, I was about to say I hadn't heard of these guys. So
Me either.
as a Buttrey return, that makes more sense to me for sure. Obviously, another look for the Angels to upgrade the pin. But yeah, any thoughts on what's happening here? Maybe I'm not even following this deal anymore.
I'm really excited to add Taylor Rogers, the reliever, the left-hander relief. My bullpen's very talented, but very stacked with righties. So I'm very happy. Taylor Rogers is immediately the best left-hander reliever I have, better than Alex Vezia and Hunter Milam.
So
there's your return for Rogers. I'm blaming that one on Cam for trading a couple of relievers back to back on me.
He should have just traded them both to me.
Yeah, we got Jose Rios, who's a relief pitching prospect. Maybe something else if he develops a third pitch, but he's been okay in the minors, nothing special there. And then De La Cruz, it looks to be close to MLB, having a really nice year in AAA, actually. Not sure at long-term potential about sticking it at left field with his bat, but I think job well done by the Tigers acquiring a big left-handed arm. All right, we are slightly closing in. I know the other half of that deal was Buttrey getting moved.
Yeah, we might as well get to that one, right?
Yeah, you touch them all from the Blue Jays. So the Blue Jays trade Rogers to the Tigers, Buttrey to the Angels. So everyone's staying in the AL there. Buttrey has a low 3 ERA this year. He's closed 22 games. Coming off a year with a 1.48 ERA. So and a guy he got off waivers from the Dodgers that year, he had a 1.48 ERA. So a guy is expiring after this year, but seems like a good buy for an Angels bullpen that could use it as well.
Yeah, I've got another deal for you. The Texas Rangers have acquired center fielder Byron Buxton, fully retained from the San Diego Padres, in exchange for reliever Juan Idrogo.
Okay, that's a fun one. So Buxton, obviously, elite level defender there in San Diego. The Padres get back Idrogo, who's an interesting prospect. Kind of looks like he's pretty close to major league ready, despite how low level he's pitching right now. Big time fastball, side armor, relief option. Jason, thoughts on sending Buxton out of San Diego?
Yeah, I mean, Buxton's a free agent at the end of the year, and given his injury proneness, I wasn't going to re-sign him. The guy who never really did for me what I hoped when I traded for him. But yeah, just to get a decent reliever back for him, I was happy to move him just for that. And Drogo, yeah, like you said, could be a bullpen option for me as soon as next year. I'll probably move him up to at least AA, if not AAA, when I officially get him.
All right, so we're at a minute and a half from the deadline. I'm sure we'll get the fax machines will be running over, and we'll get some in a couple minutes after. But
yeah, Tyler, you're not lying. The trades are really starting to roll in right now.
Wow.
The Boston Red Sox have acquired Eugenio Suarez, Ramon Laureano, and Brandon Brennan from the Baltimore Orioles in exchange for Mike Clark, Frank Delgado, and Luis Garcia. This deal does have Eugenio Suarez as 70% retained.
Okay, so, well, there goes Tyler saying the Red Sox need some pitching and the offense looks great. They go out and get Eugenio Suarez and Laureano, who are two big-time bats. I mean, 2023 and 2024, Eugenio Suarez led the league in homers and RBI playing for the Nationals. It's been a slight step back this year in Baltimore. but obviously some prior success there for sure. Laureano, we just touched on, good defender and right, a spark plug personality, obviously not a bad one to bring into the locker room. Guys, your thoughts on what the Red Sox are getting and kind of what the Orioles are getting back?
We get that trade up again.
Yeah, the Red Sox are getting, big time offensive talent in Laureano as an all around, position player in right field. They haven't gotten what they were hoping out of Chase Davis, so I think he just immediately steps into that role. Eugenio Suarez is interesting. They have Justin Yurchak, who's playing first base right now, who's been unbelievable for them, or great for them this year. Maybe he steps in at third base. Maybe he's a guy who it might have just been kind of a money thing. The Orioles wanted to move some money, but he might fit in as maybe a DH type of thing. But yeah, the prospect return is actually pretty good. Mike Clark is a top 200 prospect, who is a left fielder who's at A-ball, 20-year-old, decent power and eye, should be a battle league average defensive player, if not a little below. But yeah, him and I really like Delgado. These are two guys. Delgado's a guy who I really liked from them whenever I spoke with Brian about the Red Sox. He's a guy I really like to talk about and try to get in any deal with him. But I think it's a good move for both sides. The Orioles get some really good prospect talent, and the Red Sox get a guy in Laureano who really boosts their lineup.
I thought Mike Clark was better than Mike Murphy.
All right, I'm going to
draft.
Bring it on, Zach.
That's certainly a take.
I was wrong about that.
We have a huge deal. The Toronto Blue Jays have acquired shortstop Royce Lewis from the Cincinnati Reds, along with starting pitcher Noah Song, in exchange for a 6-player package.
Oh my!
Wow, this is one to unpack, isn't it?
The Blue Jays are throwing me for a loop here with the buying and the selling. Obviously, Lewis is a piece who's not necessarily you have him for years. You don't have it's not this year and over, but it's a lot of And
I mean that contract is incredible, given he's an MVP caliber player. So I mean, this obviously this is not a move you're making just for this year. This is a move you're making for the next 4 or 5 years. I'm just going through and trying to see what the return is here, because it's Capriata is a top 20 prospect who looks pretty special.
Yeah, I mean, Song is a guy who is a fairly young pitcher as well. Just starting to hit arbitration now. He's finally kind of started to find some success this year. Low 4 ERA, so that's 2 major league guys going to Toronto. I know at least Alaman and Raccio on that list that we touched on were guys that they acquired in deals, the Maeda deal, the Clevenger, other deals earlier in this year. So prospects are coming in, prospects are going out for the Blue Jays. But like you mentioned, Jason, Royce on that contract for that much control is worth kind of, ponying up your system for.
It's reminiscent of the Albies contract, to be honest. Just kind of he's going to be very undervalued for the next 5 years. So yeah, I think it's a really good move for Toronto to get him. I know they get a lot in prospect talent, but if they're looking to compete in the next 2 or 3 years, he'll be right in the middle of that.
Nick, why do you think the Reds moved on Royce Lewis at this point?
That's a good question. You would think that's the type of talent you want to build around, especially when there's young talent like Nick Lodolo's under an amazing contract for the Reds as well, an even better contract. He doesn't, I don't think, makes more than $2 million over the next 3 years. Those are just the type of players you build around. I'm not sure.
And after, you just traded how many prospects for that Severino, Alvarez, Abrams package,
especially giving up Ahearns.
So it seems like it's just you're back at square one now.
They better trade Jordan tonight.
It's an interesting move. They definitely get a lot of talent back, but Royce Lewis is a top, maybe top 5 to 10 player in the league right now on an incredible contract.
Those puzzle pieces will fit together one day. The Reds will get it together. It just hasn't matched up at the right time yet.
Yep.
I don't want to get
So we've
ahead
hit the deadline, and we're getting a couple of last minute deals coming in. The Toronto Blue Jays have acquired Drew Pomerantz, Keter Montero, Andrew Painter, and Joshua Mears from the Atlanta Braves in exchange for Daysbel Hernandez and Huascar Yanoa.
It feels like Cam probably didn't get off slack for like the last 24 hours with all these deals coming through. My goodness. On first glance for me, that's a lot of pitchers. I know for sure in that deal, at least 5 of those 6 are pitchers, I think. So the Braves and Blue Jays are, that's kind of given the Blue Jays recent move, maybe both contenders trying to make some upgrades there. Pomeranz obviously been around for a while. Daysbel Hernandez going back to Toronto is an interesting name, or going to Atlanta, excuse me, is an interesting name. A guy who's had a low 4 ERA this season, but just 28, a lot of control, 2 big time pitches. Love his profile, if I'm being honest. So looks like a big pin arm for the Braves to get there.
Tyler, it looks like we had a couple deals posted publicly. The Kansas City Royals have traded Cesar Parra to the Tampa Bay Rays in exchange for Grant Witherspoon. And then we had a big one where the Angels and Dodgers linked up, Kevin Gausman, Chris Bryant, and a couple of prospects, if you guys want to talk about them.
Yeah, I saw the Gausman Bryant one get posted, and I've been kind of fiending to get to it because it's a fun one. Obviously, Gausman and Bryant going both ways. A lot of money there. Gausman, the Angels have made a number of moves for arms here, which is good to see because that's really where they were lacking, if anything. KB, that contract wraps up this year, which is nice for the Dodgers if they were looking to get out of money. But I think it was you, Jason, that mentioned the Dodgers could use a right fielder, and this happens to be a nice fit for both of them. Some pitching, and the Dodgers get back Bryant.
Yeah, I mean, Brian's not having a good year at all. And he, it's a worthwhile gamble for them, especially if they really need to get out of that Gausman contract. That definitely is probably a huge part of this trade for them. Bryant, is just been terrible for the Angels this year. Maybe going across town boosts him up a little bit. Right field is his best position at this point, and if he can get back even close to what he was the last year or two, that's a huge deal for the Dodgers, who probably need a boost, a little bit of a boost in that lineup.
Kevin Gausman's been thrown around this league so much.
Yeah, I got another big one just coming in, trickling in. I'm getting the final details. It looks like the Chicago Cubs have acquired Adley Rutschman from the Baltimore Orioles in exchange for Jim Skinner, Alfredo Jimenez, Andy Wells, and Gabriel Barbosa.
Hey, I don't know.
Now, the Cubbies are an outside team to make the move for Adley for sure. I'm going to assume, without digging into all these guys, a really nice prospect return. I do remember Alfredo Jimenez because I've seen this. It's a wild profile, and just a hilarious guy to kind of play the catcher position, but should be a great one, honestly. He's actually been up in the majors for a couple games this year, but the ultimate Trinidad profile, as I like to refer to it as, high contact, high gap, high avoid Ks. But the Cubbies are a buyer, and they go out and get Adley Rutschman. Your thoughts on Adley to Chicago and that return?
I think the Cubs did great there. I think the Orioles know that their time with Rutschman was ending regardless, because I'm sure his contract after next season is going to be extremely large. I don't think they gave up any for sure studs after quick look. And they'll have the money to be able to resign Rutschman too, I assume, because I don't believe have many financial responsibilities right now. I really like it for the Cubs.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a team. The Cubs have just a ton of young pitching right now. When I was having conversations with them on various things, it was looking at all that young pitching that was already in the majors or right at AAA and ready to go. So I think other than Jimenez, the other three are all more young pitchers. So they're definitely trading from a position of strength with there. And to get a guy like Rutschman, who I gotta think they try really hard to re-sign. Getting a catcher like that to really help those young pitchers will be huge for them. And then not to mention just what his bat's going to do for that lineup.
Wow. So, yeah, as it says at the bottom, Royce and Adley both go to two teams. I don't know that I guess we thought the Blue Jays were probably contending, maybe not, but two teams I think would be on the outside looking in terms of obvious buyers for this year's deadline specifically. So, fun movement throughout the league.
Yeah, I thought Lewis was more open just because of that contract.
I got one more last minute trade, a minor one for you.
Go for it.
Starting pitcher Adonis Medina has been traded from the Miami Marlins to the Boston Red Sox in exchange for outfielder Jorge Ona.
Okay, so this is they hooked up on the Jorge Guzman deal as well, correct? So this is the second Miami-Boston deal we're seeing at the deadline. Medina having a fine year as a starter for them. ERA is just a tick under 5. Coming off a year where he was pretty good a year ago, so still just 28, can maybe figure it out there, but the Red Sox go back to, I think, what we thought they would do and make some moves for some pitching.
I really like this move for Boston. I think Medina is a guy who was actually really pretty good for Miami last year. Posted a 3.49 ERA with a 1.2 WHIP. Has been solid for them again this year. Under team control for another couple of years to get a guy like that at 20 years old just for kind of a 28-year-old AAA outfielder is, I think, a steal for Boston.
Especially after their Clevenger injury, it was a must, and they did really good here.
So by my count, we got 5 of the top 10 have moved. No Edwin Diaz movement yet. Looks like he'll be sticking it out in San Diego.
I can confirm that there will be no Edwin Diaz movement.
Good source.
Yeah.
And kind of like we alluded to.
Yeah, Tyler. I one more thing. I'm kind of confirming that the last minute deals might be done, but I do have some rumors. It does seem like Bryce Harper was a hot commodity, but he will be staying put in Minnesota. I was told by my insiders both the Cincinnati Reds and Chicago Cubs had shown interest. The Kansas City Royals were hot after young, controllable players. One name to watch with them in the offseason is outfielder Jefferson Espinal. And as motivated as they were to trade Jason Guzman, they were unable to.
Yeah, that was, maybe the most
the Cleveland Spiders were uncommonly quiet, were linked to Yordan Alvarez, but ultimately didn't get a deal done despite last-minute efforts.
I'm very happy with that.
And there was traction with Lewin Diaz of the Miami Marlins, and he will stay put as well.
Yeah, Lewin was a name who...
Oh. And a couple of big clubs, the New York Yankees and the LA Dodgers, both failing to make deals. The Yankees thought it was best to stay put and ride the wave, while the LA Dodgers were a little bit financially strapped. Maybe the reason why we saw Gausman for Chris Bryant.
Yeah, I think definitely so. I think that deal helps. The Dodgers being financially constrained blows my mind how we have to get to that point. But
I clean up somebody's mess.
Yeah. I think Jason Guzman's probably the most interesting name on the list not to move, maybe. I think we thought Mejia was probably too high of a price tag. Edwin Diaz is, an interesting one. I thought there was a good chance he could move as well, but we see a good chunk of this list go. I'm shocked the Spiders and Reds didn't get down to some Mejia for Yordan Alvarez type deal, and we just worked this thing over.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with Guzman, I think maybe teams were scared off because he's currently on the DL to come back for rehab assignment, and I don't think KC really needs to be in a rush to move him. Just, he's not, a pending free agent or anything like that. His price tag isn't going to get too high. So another guy who maybe we see a little bit of movement on in the offseason.
So there it is, boys. I think we are through the deadline. Obviously, our maybe the Blue Jays are the biggest. I mean, the Blue Jays were the most active for sure.
Jays and Cubs.
Yeah. I mean, the Cubs, I think you have to say, or if they get a good extension signed with Adley, they're a winner here. The Jays get Lewis. They send some bullpen elsewhere. All in all, a good deadline, a lot of moves. I think we were well into the double digits there with trades. So interested to see what this sets up going forward. Any teams that y'all were surprised? We touched on the Yankees, but anyone else you were surprised we didn't see make a move? Maybe a team like the Rays or
Oakland. I don't know which way they would have went, but they have a lot of expirings and they're a small market team. Nothing.
Like
Luzardo, are they going to be able to resign Luzardo? He would have gotten a fortune in this market, a fortune.
Yeah, I think they've stuck in that sweet spot here for a couple of years now where they got to pick a direction and it just hadn't come together yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say in the same division, Seattle too, who's right now, clinging to that second spot, and they didn't make themselves better. So it's, we'll see if they're able to hang on there.
Yeah, I think in that division, the Angels are another winner too, right? I mean, it's a lot of probably mediocre, nothing too special in terms of arms. Gosman's the headliner, but they needed arms and help. They got a couple bullpen pieces. Gosman can obviously, the rotation's good, could slide into the back end or help in relief too. So got to like the deadline for the Angels. All right, and with that,
I think the things that stand out to me, the Oakland Athletics failing to make any moves like Nick touched on, and also the Colorado Rockies and the Arizona Diamondbacks, the two teams
I forgot about Arizona.
fighting for the West and then the wild card spot, didn't make any deals.
Yeah, I totally agree with Nick when he was talking about Arizona needing to add a shortstop. That huge hole. I was actually shocked he didn't claim Didi Gregorius off waivers when I put him out there. So, that's really the only move that I really would have liked to see him upgrade in the shortstop. Arizona.
I think the Antoine Kelly deal just shook the NL West to their core. So everyone was just, a little gun shy about pulling the trigger after that. But all in all, good deadline. Does this change any of the, the races? We see pretty big leads across the league. I feel like we are kind of all in agreement. If anything, the Angels have done work to improve their advantage over the Angels. The Nats,
Mariners are red hot though.
Yeah, they are hot. The Nats and Braves both kind of made buy now, win now moves. What are your thoughts on them moving forward and the deals they made today?
I think, as usual, the Braves will overtake their competition late. Seems to be a trend.
Mm-hmm.
They're just too talented to be 4 games over 500. And the Nationals, last I checked, had like a +4 run differential. It's up to 14 now. I think they're gonna have a hard time holding off Atlanta, but they did make good moves today.
Yeah, I mean, one team. I mean, we touched on them as a winner, but the Blue Jays. You know, I'm not sure where they are now after the sim, but coming into the sim, they were only 2.5 games out, and they probably just got the best player who was moved at the deadline. I know they moved some pieces out, but you know, we'll see that if they can if how much of an upgrade Royce Lewis ends up being for them, they could really push themselves right into that. I know they moved Raquel de Castro, so I'm sure, and who's been kind of mediocre for them, and Lewis steps right up into that shortstop role. That's a team that we can look out for in the AL as maybe a wild card contender now going forward.
Yeah, I mean, spending my year looking at the NL playoff picture, it blew my mind how still tight the AL wild card was. I mean, there was most all the league was within 4 or 5 games of the wild card spot, so anyone could have come up and been a buyer there for sure. So it'll be fun to watch how that Jays, this whole season they've moved guys. I mean, 2 of our top 5 trades were with the Jays, guys all over the place today. So there'll be an interesting one to see come together in the second half for sure. Zach, anything else you want us to touch on? Are we good to wrap the party up?
No, I think everything went smooth for the most part, minus one Toronto bullpen mishap. I had a lot of fun, and I thank you guys, all of you guys, for creating the outline and all the talking points and whatnot, and allowing me to work behind the scenes. I think this was fun, and we'll have to do it again next deadline.
Yep, absolutely. Enjoyed it, guys. Thank you all. Thank you, Zach, for putting this together. It was a good time for sure.
That was a blast.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
So much fun. Y'all did,
Hayden, I don't know who that is. I'm sorry.
Y'all did a great job. I watched most of it.
Yep. Thanks for that. Yeah, thanks, John. Appreciate all the input.
Go Cards.